Hello everyone! I am coming to you from my first ever standing desk and actually the first piece of furniture I've bought as my own adult, so that's pretty exciting. In other news, I'm about to have a piece out in 1.0. I'll be able to send you guys the link as soon as that's out. It will be for a few weeks though, so just start feeling excited. I know I sure am. And I wanted to talk about my number one tip for having articles accepted into the big medium publications. This is what works for me. This is what I use every time I need to actually give my arguments like some force, you know, and I'm excited to share it all with you guys. So let's talk about the number one tip I have for getting you into a big medium publication. Let's back up a little bit before we dive in. I think one of the reasons I've been so successful on Medium is because I have 2 degrees in biology. I know what you're thinking. I don't write about birds or whatever, or not that much anyway. But getting 2 degrees in biology means that I know how to write an argument. I know how to present ideas persuasively, and most importantly, I know how to back them up with science. So if you go through any of my articles in Forge, in 1.0, you'll find that they're backed up with science. Most of the ideas I have in there, like statements of fact, I hyperlink to a relevant peer-reviewed paper, which means that a lot of research has gone into it. They've literally done tests on that idea and they've found it to be true. The outcome of when you use scientific papers in your writing is that your ideas have more weight, because it's not just you who thinks this, it's everyone in the scientific communities. You're also going to be better educated on the topic. The more you start to read scientifically around what you're writing about, the more you're going to know, the more related things you're going to have, and the more of an expert you're going to be in your area, which is always a good thing. And finally, your readers are going to trust you more. I can't tell you the number of times I've read like somebody presenting something as a fact and I'm like, where did you get that from? Who told you that? That's not true. And I Google it, and in fact, it's not true. Or, you know, they got it from like a random blog on Facebook or whatever. It might be true, but there's no science backing it up. There's nothing proving it to be true. You can do better. You can go a step above and use Google Scholar to back your ideas up with science. And I'm going to walk you through exactly how to do that. Step 1, go to Google. Well, actually, you're going to go to scholar.google.com. Then type in your keywords. For me, most recently, I was interested in whether looking at celebrities on social media all day affected body image of folks. So I typed in celebrity, social media, body image, psychology, and that pulled up a ton of papers because it turns out I'm not the only one who's interested in that kind of thing. What I like to do now is narrow my window. So if you look to your left of the window, you'll see you've got some time options. I try to go for 2015 or later. That's like a 4 or 5 year window. You might think, oh, but I want all the literature, right? I don't want only the most recent stuff. But this is where scientific papers are really good. It's like a rabbit hole. So you pull up something that came out in 2015 and you start reading it and you're like, oh, so they mentioned another idea. And if that's linked to a different paper, so you can click on that and go to a different paper. And each paper will have like 10 ideas that you're interested in. And you can keep clicking on them until, you know, you open all the papers there are on the subject. I like to start with 2015 because it tends to mean that my results are more current, they're more up to date with the literature, but I will still be able to get a fully well-rounded idea of what's happening in that area. Then you're gonna read the paper. So you can read the whole thing, it's time consuming, but it's good practice to do that. I'm gonna be real with you, I don't. I read the abstract to make sure it's what I'm interested in. I read the top bit and the bottom bit of the introduction, and then I go straight to the discussion. If something's niggling at you and you're like, that doesn't feel quite right, definitely go check out the methods and cast over it with like an analytical eye and make sure that it wasn't just like, we asked 2 people and they both said yes. That would be a red flag. But this is the great thing about peer-reviewed papers. They've gone through a really stringent publishing process, so you can trust that what they say is true. Once you've read your paper and you know that it's the right one for the idea that you're talking about, you just copy that link and hyperlink the idea in your article that you're writing. So for example, for me, I was writing celebrities on Instagram affect the body image of women and men equally. So I was able to take that and hyperlink it directly to the paper, citing that exact idea, proving that idea. It's just instant accreditation to what you're saying. So if somebody's reading my paper and they're like, that can't be right, they can literally instantly click on that and go straight to the article and be like, oh wow, so it's true. There's an actual scientific paper proving what this person says is true. So again, this is gonna give your ideas more heft, you're gonna be super educated on what you're talking about, and your readers are gonna trust you because everything you say is backed up by fact. Common issues that you might run into. It's not available. The easiest solution is that you can actually go to Sci-Hub. So you can just Google sci-hub.tw and you're gonna have access to all of these research papers. Other issues, you might find that it's too dense. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, these people who are writing are people who've spent 20 years studying the topic. It's okay to say, like, I don't really get that, that's totally cool. So in those cases, what I do is I'm reading the abstract and I'm like, oh boy, that's a lot. I scale it back a step. So instead I go to Wikipedia and I try to read the sort of layman's term of what they're talking about. You might think Wikipedia isn't a good resource because anybody can edit it. That's true. But all of the reputable Wikipedia articles are cited, again, by good papers. So you can read like the regular person's version of your idea and you'll see that it links to a scientific paper, maybe one that you might have trouble parsing or kind of understanding. So you can get the idea, you can understand it, but then you can link to the paper. You don't necessarily have to understand the paper because Wikipedia is going to give you a pretty good summary. And instead of linking to Wikipedia, you can just link to the paper, which you don't actually have to read. And then you might find there's not enough on the topic. This is another common problem, especially for things like social media, which is something I'm really interested in. There's just not that much research on it. It's cutting edge. Like, Instagram's not been around that long for people to get funding and research and blah, blah, blah. So if you're finding this to be the case, I try to go backwards in time. So this happened to me really interesting. I started by typing in like social media, Instagram, and I found a lot of the papers I was reading were citing one seminal work by Leon Festinger. He wrote a book in like 1954, so I'm trying to rapidly do math, 60 years, 65 years? Anyway, and what he said then is still true today. We're just seeing it through different facets. So instead of just being like magazines, we're seeing stuff on Instagram. Just because science is old doesn't mean it's bad. A lot of times the fundamentals, the theories were all laid out years and years and years ago, and now more refined experiments are proving them to be true or proving them to be false. But if you're having trouble finding enough on your topic, I would suggest broadening your scope and going back in time, and that works for me every single time. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video. It's a bit shorter than some of the ones I've been putting up recently, but I've tried to be as to the point and as valuable as I possibly can in these few minutes. Go to Google Scholar, use that tool. It's such an incredible resource and it's free. You can read facts on science for free and it's gonna make your articles so much better. All of the articles, bar the one in Human Parts that I've gotten into big and medium publications, have used a lot of scientific citations. I don't think that's a coincidence. So give it a try. Let me know what you think. Let me know how it goes. And if you've got any questions, as always, drop them in the comments below. And I look forward to seeing you all next week. Have a great Sunday.